Hello, hello. Yeah, microphone's working. Hello, everybody. I decided to just go live randomly, um, because I just enjoy going live. I enjoy being speaking. I enjoy talking to my visitors. So let's see if they're coming in. I see some people coming in. Hi, how are you doing? I waved at somebody. It shows me the option. I decided to just go live randomly to talk to my followers, my crowd, whoever's interested in what I have to say. I was just thinking very randomly about this topic. Because I live in the Netherlands, I don't quite perceive coming to the USA as a way to get a better life. That's what they always say about immigrants, right? Immigrants have the right to a better life. That's why they come to live with us. But I don't, as a Dutch person at least, I think the difference, I understand life can be better in the US, but it can also be a lot worse. So I would not naturally assume that coming to the US would improve my life at all. uh, I would worry about things like your court system, where everything's so overly commercial that sometimes judges would convict people because they get kickbacks from the prison system, so they have an incentive to jail people more often, right? Or and of course, as Europeans, we are always astonished at the incredible sentencing that you can get in the USA. Like in Europe, you get 4 months for rape, but in the USA, you get 40 years or something. No, I don't think 4 months is enough at all for such a grave crime. But there's other things like for the craziest reasons, you can get like incredible sentencing. I would worry about being like Daniel Penny, for example. If I come to the USA, if I would live there as a citizen or get a green card or something, I would live in the USA and I would be on the train and some absolute total disturbed mutt would attack me or try to douse me in liquids and set fire to me or something, which has happened, right? We know the story about this woman who was set fire on the New York subway train. And I imagine I'm this kind of Daniel Penny guy and I want to do something about something. And then I get 50 years in prison or something, right? That is just so scary. The thought of that, of being on the wrong end of justice, even though I tried to do the right thing, to me, it's just shocking. I wouldn't. That's one of the reasons why I wouldn't want to live in the USA. You get burnt in ways you don't want to. Yeah. Oh hi. Yeah, one of my loyal followers, Lelouch Victoria. Yeah, nice to see you here as well. Yeah. I don't know. For the past few days, I've been doing live streams almost every day, almost every evening. It depends. I will definitely always do them on Wednesdays, but maybe I can do them more often in between as well. Um, I'm wearing a blanket, by the way, because I don't want to pay too much for the heating costs. It's not freezing here; it's fine, but I like to get comfortable, right? So that's why I'm wearing the blanket. Uh, so I hope to see people on the Wednesday regular streams, and then I will still do more on this one here. Right? I've noticed the TikTok algorithm has changed a bit. Have you noticed it as well? Uh, I don't know if I'm dreaming, but to me it appears as though I'm getting to see more pro-Israeli content, more pro-Zionist people, like all sorts of people, and I normally never saw any of them ever. So that's why I was like confused. Like, did the algorithm change? Is this part of the deal to keep TikTok live for you Americans, that they are messing with it? Oh, you call it a throw. Oh, I get it. I get it. You throw it over your shoulders, right? Uh, yeah. Is it really true though? If someone asks here, we're sadly dying out with our low birth rates, and I wonder, uh, is that really a problem? Everywhere in the world we have the same problem. Korea, Japan, China, Latin America, all European nations, of course. There are still some people being born a lot in places like Nigeria and Ethiopia. But even a place like India now has dropped below the replacement rate of their birth rate, below 2.2 per woman. Even they are going down the path of Europe of aging demographics, right? And the problem though is places like India, See, Europe tried to solve the aging problem with immigrants, or at least they say that's what they're doing. But how would India ever do that? Nobody is going to mass migrate to India in numbers. Like India has 1.1 billion people or so, or maybe 1.2 billion. They would need hundreds of millions of immigrants coming there to support their elderly. So that's not going to happen. And certainly places like Nigeria and Ethiopia, by the end of this century, when they start aging, nobody's going to come to their countries to help them feed their elderly and so on. It just doesn't work. Oh, you noticed it too on your For You page? Yeah. Yeah, more pro-Zionist content, so the whole algorithm has changed. I've also noticed that if I look, I can see the statistics for my videos on TikTok, right? And I noticed that when videos do well, 98% of the people who see it are not followers, are non-followers. And sometimes when the videos that don't do well, it's because 60% of the viewers are my followers, and they only show it to 40%. 40% only constitutes my my non-followers. So I noticed that recently, I think I may have some sort of a shadow ban. I'm not sure. It's like a shadow ban where they don't really push my video out to non-followers as much. But okay, I will keep posting, of course, because I have 50,000 followers now, and I get views on my videos. So of course I'm going to keep talking. But I've noticed that I may be shadow banned on this account. I don't know if it's real or if I'm imagining it, or if it is true, how long it will last, right? But we'll see about that, right? You like my mindset. Thank you, Benjamin. Yeah. All right, I have a cup of tea over here so you can hear me sip. Once upon a time, I had like hundreds and hundreds of viewers, and all I was doing was sipping a cup of tea, and nobody said anything, but hundreds of people were watching. That's so silly. Yeah, we need to cut loose from central banking. Right, so what's the problem with central banking, really? I did an interview with Daniel Natal. You may, if you follow me, you may know that I did 2 interviews with him last year. And Daniel Natal explained it to me that at some point in history, during the decline of the British Empire, the British elites went looking for a way to somehow offload their losses. And they came up with the idea of building central banks. Because through the central banks, they could then print more money, causing inflation, which devalues your savings, right? So if you have 1% interest on your savings, but 21% inflation, then your savings are technically worth 20% less. So savings are hit that way. And that way, the elites were able to pass on their losses to people with savings, usually like middle-class people with savings. And that's what they're still doing. So the whole idea of central banks is for the elites to have a way to rob their own people in case they need to do so. But they can't go house to house, door to door to take your money. No, that would lead to a revolt. People would fight, and people would arm themselves, right, with pitchforks to fight these the tax collectors, so to speak. And so they do it via the central bank system because hardly anybody really understands what's happening. They call it inflation, but your salaries go up, and sometimes your salaries are in lockstep with the inflation, so you feel like, oh, I'm fine. Prices are going up, but my salary is going up, I'm fine. But your savings are being devalued. You're being robbed through the back door, and you're not even noticing it. If people understood this, there would be riots all over the Western world right now, you know? Right. It's a shame that so many leftists are against deportation of illegal immigrants. Yeah, I also spoke about this. You know, I've been thinking about the reasons behind that. Why do leftists support open borders? And there's 2 reasons. Of course, leftists love their cheap $2 an hour Mexican gardener. That's one reason. But the other reason is leftists perceive themselves as being lower in the hierarchy, as low-ranking people. And they imagine if more people would come in, those people would be below them in the hierarchy. So they have a sense of like, if we would add more people to the bottom of our society, I would rise in the hierarchy. At least so they perceive. And I think that is real. I think leftist psychology is authoritarian. They have authoritarian personalities in the sense that what they look for is power and how to gain power. And if adding people to the bottom of their society means they can rise in the hierarchy, right, because you've padded the bottom of the pyramid more, then that's why they support it, because they imagine they're going to manage all those people and then they can be the boss. Finally, I have people below me and I can tell them what to do. And that's how they perceive themselves, right? Which is unhealthy, of course. It's totally abnormal, because it means that the white leftist Democrats don't actually care about immigrants or love them in any way. They just seek to exploit them for status. But on the other hand, you also have the right-wingers who exploit them for low-cost labor and for increasing the demand for housing, which increases the housing prices. While your salaries are going down, the housing prices are going up. So that's also very, very evil. Right? Oh, hey, Home Math is on my live show. That's really great. Hi, man. TikTok's back in the USA. Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah. So leftoids like immigrants because it makes them feel superior. Yeah, exactly. That's what I tried to express. Yeah. Everybody knows Home Math, right? He makes these awesome. He does the whole dating scene. He explains everything about women. I saw your video with the nose ring explanation. I think that was also excellent. All right, so here, the new name for the elites is parasite. Someone says, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I lost my train of thought a little bit. I'm thinking about. So we were talking about the leftists coming into the country, and the immigrants coming into the country and then exploiting them for status or so, right? So I, as a Dutch person, right, I at the moment, I live in my own country. I don't feel like I want to migrate anywhere. I don't perceive that anymore as somehow improving my life. I think if I want to improve my life, I'll have to do it myself over here, right? But I guess if you're from Peru or Colombia or something, maybe you perceive the U.S. as being such a richer place that you want to go there and get rich or something, right? Europe now is your time for change. Don't be scared. We Europeans are not scared. That's whenever people say that, I always perceive that's per projection, right? You are projecting your fears onto us. You think that we are afraid too, but we're not. I can tell you, Europeans are not afraid. And we're changing. We've always been changing. So yeah, you explain it perfectly. I've always seen it that way. Yeah, but you could never break through that. Well said. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What are we Europeans supposed to be afraid of? You know, I mean, we had always had the talents and the skill to build modern societies. We still have those skills. All our people are well educated. I would say our people possess also talents that don't monetize at the moment. For example, somebody can build birdhouses really well, or somebody else is very good at art. We have all these skills and talents that in case the economy were to collapse, we would fall back on our innate abilities and so on. And then we would simply continue working on new things. With or without cheap resources, we would succeed anyway. That's the way I perceive it, right? Slytherin, I don't know what that is. It's like a snake. All right. What is your view of right versus left? Don't you think that the sides are created to divide? No. I don't believe that, no. It's not created to divide. Although, see, the way I use right versus left is simply, do you support your own people? Yes, then that means you're right wing. And if you prefer other people over your own, that makes you left wing. So it's a bit of a difference between inner stability, like seeking internal validations, then you're right wing. If you seek external validations, you're more left wing likely. And I think that is real, right? That's very real. Though, okay, to some extent, maybe in the political system, if they only have two parties, as in the USA, maybe that is meant to divide. But on the other hand, like where I'm from in the Netherlands, we have a dozen different parties. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's not so much an instrument to divide people, but it is an instrument to use legalistic tricks to have to impose your will onto a people by abusing the divisions so much. So the division itself is not that much a problem, but abusing it is. So yeah, somebody kept asking, like, afraid of what? I don't know what we're supposed to be afraid of. All right. I was thinking about the United Kingdom as well. In the UK today, the court case started against that young man. He was 17 years old last year when he murdered the girls in Southport. And 3 girls were killed, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. His court case started today, and he admitted, he pleaded guilty, when previously he said he wasn't. And this seems to have all sorts of implications now. What it means is that his conviction will be a lot easier to get, and now that means there won't be such a media hype around the case, right? People aren't going to dig into the facts. But one thing we should not forget is that since the Southport riots started, Keir Starmer's regime has jailed over 1,500 British citizens, most of them for saying something online, right? Or a lot of them just spoke words on the internet. And like, there was a mother whose son had been murdered by a brown doctor who was incompetent, and she obviously was angry again, witnessing or hearing about the death of these girls, and she wished evil and harm upon illegal immigrants or something like that, and they jailed her for like 1.5 years or so. And I think that's weird. I don't think people can be jailed for words alone. Words with actions, you can jail people for that, for words with actions. But jailing people just for words, I find that very odd that we are doing this in Europe, right? Somebody asks me in Dutch what political party they should vote for. Vote for whatever you believe in, but I don't think voting matters that much anymore. Now democracies in the West is pretty much superseded by the EU and by NATO, who seem to be able to tell us what to do, right? All right, I'm going to try to keep going, to keep talking to you. So in the UK, the censorship is so extreme, it's not so much that you are being censored for the words you speak, you are being censored for the topics you're addressing. That's a very different kind of censorship that we are witnessing now. You know, this is abnormal. I understand you can't use violent speech. I understand that could be problematic. But simply to be able to address the facts and then be arrested because they say that the facts are Islamophobic, or the facts are anti-Semitic, or the facts are this and that. That is so evil. You can't do that. So right. So somebody says, you're a buddy from Paul Lynch. Okay. You think I'm brilliant. Oh, thank you very much. All right. The UK somehow seems to be spearheading this massive crackdown on wrongthink and hate speech and so on, because I think hate speech is a totally nonsensical concept to begin with. If you're a very hateful person and you speak about apples, that's not hate speech. If I say something that you hate to hear, that's also not hate speech. Many people don't seem to understand that very well, that the speech you just don't like to hear is not hate speech. Hate speech is, apparently the legal definition is something like, you can't attack people for qualities, physical qualities that they cannot change about themselves, like their looks, their race, their gender, and so on, right? And then discriminate against them or call for the discrimination against them. But then again, you know, discrimination, in my view, should be an act. If I say I'm going to discriminate you, but then I don't, then I did not commit the act. And what am I guilty of, really, right? Also, the notion that you can cause an uproar in society, that your words could somehow inflame or push people to committing bad things. I don't quite believe that. How would you even prove that? That's very suggestive. So if I said something in my podcast or in my live stream, and other people go outside and they commit crimes and they say, they say that I inspired them. Did I really? How do you prove something like that? How do you prove like a distant connection that say, I said one thing, you did another thing. I didn't do that. I did not join, right? Then how can you convict me of speaking the words? So I find that the laws against incitement, for example, if it's not really explicit, like let's go and kill somebody, right? That's very explicit. I can understand you need to stop that, right? Right? But talking about who are the rapists in Rotherham, the gang rapists who attacked the girls, it's 80% Pakistani Muslim. I read that in an actual research, right? By an academic researcher. I read the research and it says it was 80% Pakistani Muslim in places like Rotherham. Why can't I mention that without being called an Islamophobe? I didn't say Muslims are all bad. I didn't even say Islam is bad. I said the perpetrators were 80% Pakistani Muslim, and we need to perhaps talk about this. Why is it them? Why do they do it? What are their motives? And then if we find out that their motives are Islamic war doctrine, then you can't call me an Islamophobe at all. Then we need to call out Islam, right? Why do some people use Islam to attack white girls in the UK and in Sweden and in the Netherlands and in Germany? Is it a war doctrine? If it is a war doctrine, you can't deny that. You can't sweep that under the carpet. You need to talk about it, right? You need to talk about it. And we're not doing that. We're making it impossible to discuss the topic on the grounds of it being hate speech, that the topic is addressing the topic is hate speech. That's impossible. It should always be possible to address every topic, even something like Holocaust denial, should be discussable, debatable, and not ex ante forbidden, right? Because only if you allow decent, say, let's use decent words, decent debate, decent discussion, right? And we talk about any topic, right? That is the way to truth. That is how you find out what is really true or not, right? I'm of the opinion that Islam within the Quran itself does contain lines that incite people to commit violence against non-believers, right? And it can be used, for example, by imams as a war doctrine to go out and attack white girls. So denying that, I think, is disingenuous, you know? Like in the Netherlands, there are forbidden topics, apparently. You're not allowed to discuss or mention even. There are strange laws about group discrimination and group insult. You're not allowed to insult a group of people based on qualities, right? And which is very strange because almost anything can be perceived as being insulting. For example, say I compare Nigerians to Dutch people. I live in the Netherlands and I say, oh, Nigerians are like Dutch people. The Nigerians might perceive that as being insulting. They're being compared to Dutch people may feel insulting to them, and then I'm guilty of group insult, right? So that becomes a very strange, almost ridiculous case then, that anything can be perceived as being insulting, right? Or if I say Dutch people love cheese, sounds like a positive thing, but it can be interpreted as a bad thing. Say you're a cheese hater, you hate cheese, then you would perceive Dutch people liking cheese as something negative and therefore as a group insult, and you could then is that also you're gonna be dragged to court over these kinds of what do you call it, perceived insults? That can't be true. And so more and more in our progressive liberal justice system, we are removing ourselves more and more from the truth. The truth doesn't change, but we are removing ourselves further and further away from it to the point where it becomes almost ridiculous. Like there are words in the Netherlands that you can't say nowadays anymore. There's a word we have for people with Down syndrome, which is a common word that every Dutch person knows. And if you use it nowadays to describe a person with Down syndrome, all of a sudden it's considered a hate crime. which is bizarre because it's not announced. It's simply, at some point, they simply decided to make all sorts of words criminal or suable offenses or criminal offenses. And I don't recall this ever being communicated. Like, if I would ask the Dutch government to provide me with the list of forbidden words that you apparently are no longer allowed to say, I don't think they have this list. They don't have such a list, yet you can still go to jail for these words because someone claims they felt insulted or discriminated against because of it. For example, in the Netherlands, it's illegal to say you don't believe that somebody born in Eritrea can be a true Dutch person. It's illegal to say if you adopt a child from Kenya and you raise it in the Netherlands, then you feel like you're not a real Dutch person because you're adopted from abroad. That's illegal nowadays in the Netherlands. You could potentially go to jail for that for up to a year because you insulted people as a group, apparently. It's, like I said, it can become truly ridiculous at this point where you don't know what words can land you in jail. There's no way of knowing in advance what words can land you in a jail. And that means you can't do anything to prevent speaking them, right? It's truly strange. Somebody asked me, do you think every person from Gaza should get refuge in Europe? No, none of them should. I believe that Muslims living in Europe should seek refuge in Israel. I would definitely approve of that. All right, but I don't want any more migration coming to Europe. All the arguments about, oh, we need immigrants because of the aging demographics. Really, then why are we raising the pension age to pay for immigrant housing, right? Because we need immigrants to pay for the pensions. What? No, this is not going well. Something's wrong here. No, you don't get to insult me. Then I block you. Goodbye. So, stopping us from the proper use of our own language causes offense. Yeah. Seriously, the world has gone mad. Especially, like, I know it's bad in the UK, but I'm describing the Netherlands. I would say it's just as bad over here. Let me think of all the things that could land you in jail. Yeah, you can't say Negro in the Netherlands. That's actually considered, you can go to jail for calling a black person Negro. And this is really odd because me growing up in the Netherlands, that's the word we always used. We have a Dutch word meaning Negro. That's the word I always knew as a child, is that's what they're called. I didn't know any other word for them until I read in the newspapers that someone called a black person a Negro, and they were sued for it. They were dragged to court in Rotterdam. They had to answer to the judge, and you can get like 90 days in prison or a year in prison for something like that. This is so absurd. And I'm scratching my head questioning, like, then what do I call them? I couldn't think of the other word. I had to look it up. There's an official way of describing these people anymore. You have to say black people. You can't say Negro anymore. Okay. But again, the government and the media didn't really announce this. They simply started suing people without properly announcing this or in any other way. It's just so bizarre. I'm not making this up, you know? It's the Yankees' fault. They export their I got the same impression. They export their social laws to us, right? Well, you know, our economies aren't actually able to fund the immigration, the asylum centers, and so on, and they get welfare. We're not actually able to afford that, so we need to save money and also increase the pension age and so on, right? Because it means pensioners have to keep working and they should not be receiving pension because we're basically using the pension fund to pay for the immigrants, right? Using X posts and Facebook posts, people have been thrown, British people have been thrown in jail, often for 2 to 3 years, like 1,500 or so, at least since the Southport riots, It's really extreme. And they got Tommy Robinson as well, of course, right? It's really extreme. words cannot discriminate. Discrimination is an act, and if you're not guilty of the act, then you didn't discriminate. I think this is a big difference in the psyche between Western people and Muslim people. Muslim people are extremely easily offended because they take everything personally, whereas in the West we just shrug it off. If you would tell me that you don't like Dutch people, I'd be like, But if I tell you I don't like Muslims, you're like you're on fire already, basically ready to blow up, right? That's the difference. It's why we can't live together. The riots were extreme, yeah. Were they really extreme? All sorts of actors, bad actors must have been involved there. Secret services involved, foreign secret services involved, causing, maybe Russia wants to cause riots. But then the things that they threw people in jail for makes no sense. Some men were drunk, drinking in a pub. They went outside and stumbled upon the riots, and they said mean words to the police officers, gesturing their hands. And they went to jail for that for like 2 years. I think that's completely insane. They were on their way home. They just stumbled upon. There was another woman. A woman was doing a TikTok live stream, and she called the rapist or the murderer, she called him like a bad person. She went to jail for that too. Like, everything is now jailable offense. And that means you can no longer live freely in your country. You don't have freedom anymore when your mind isn't free, you know? Somebody claims that I'm lying, but I'm not. I'm just spilling the facts. What's your problem? You know, goodbye. So, the reason for the riots was extreme. Yeah, well, obviously, 3 girls were mass murdered. And you know that initially, you weren't even allowed to call the guy a terrorist, even though he intended to kill 10 more girls who had been wounded, right? He cut them with a machete and a knife and so on, right? It's disgusting. Yeah, it was very extreme. And then for the government, basically, to immediately protect the Islamic and the minority demographic while attacking the majority demographic, saying, you're the real problem, right? That is, I think that is what really, that's like pouring oil onto a fire. You really made it even worse. The way that the UK government, in my view, treated the native white people made it all so much worse. It's why people got really angry, because their kids were murdered by a foreigner, right? Or someone, a child of foreigners, foreign immigrants. And the first response you get from the government is to tell you to shut up or you're a racist, right? They want to throw you in jail. That was really insane, yeah? Right. I also think I'm spot on, but not everybody appreciates my truth telling. You know, I get a lot of weird comments from people calling me a liar when I just check the facts, and that's what it is. You know, and this is the problem when, if you live in this mainstream media bubble where certain truths may not be told, you get a totally different picture of reality, and you are unable to understand that it wasn't so. Right? And that's the real deal here, right? Look at all these weirdos coming into my life just to insult me. It's so strange. Like, I never do that. I don't go into people's live streams to insult them, and I've been paying attention to myself, the way I comment on other people's videos, and I try to comment supportively, sometimes in a funny way, right? And sometimes I have criticism, but I would not outright insult people or refrain from that, even if I felt like doing so. I just don't really do that. So I'm always a bit baffled at the intense negativity you get, especially from my own Dutch people. I have to tell you this. The international English-speaking crowd, also Americans and British people, they're usually fine. Usually they're fine. Some of them are nasty, but usually they're fine. But my own people, man, the Dutch people, my own people, 90% of the most nasty, insulting comments come from my own Dutch people. It's really weird. I think they have like a collective mental problem, perhaps. And I'm trying to think of what it might be. And I think it's possible that Dutch people are so repressed. Like the masculinity in this country is so repressed that men resort to a sort of very feminine, kind of passive aggression, and that's what I get back from them. What I get is passive aggression, because a lot of these people in the Netherlands feel they aren't allowed or can't be real men, and so they become passive aggressive and they take it out on me. I think that's the explanation. Of course, I would have to check with a psychologist, because I think it will be a very interesting study for psychologists to figure out what the hell is going on with Dutch people, because they claim that they're one of the happiest countries in the world, and at the same time you get the nastiest insults from them. That doesn't add up, does it? There's something hidden there underneath the surface that requires a lot of psychological study, man. So I also find this odd. I often criticize my own Dutch people. No one would sue me for racism for doing so. So why am I not allowed to apply the same kind of criticism to other foreign peoples? Oh, that's racism. Weird, huh? That's, again, you got two different measures, and that doesn't feel good to me, you know? Right. People can't stand the truth. Yeah, that's why, yeah. Ignore the demons. You're Irish and it's the same in Ireland, really? Right. Well said. Yeah, the new era is the era of weak men. I think so. I think it's partly to do with the feminism we have in our political system. It really harms boys, and if you're not strong enough to withstand it, well, you become sort of like a neutered male. Like, psychologically speaking, you become very passively aggressive, and that's really nasty, man. It's not healthy. Salute you, brothers. Oh, you're from Flanders. All right. Do you think every immigrant should leave also up to the fourth generation or third? You know, I always fantasize about starting over, that the white natives of Europe would leave the big cities behind and reclaim the countryside and start over with a new flag and a new anthem. So in terms of what the immigrants should do is, I think we have the human right to live among our own people. And I think everybody has the same human right, and therefore so do we. So that's my opinion, right? You have fierce begrudgery in Ireland. Okay. Too many femboys, yeah. Probably that's the right explanation. Right? Out there they have rules on the books that target native Europeans. Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? We are treated worse than anybody else. There were judges in the UK, and I saw the court document, right, the titles and so on, where a judge ruled that an Asian man had raped another Asian girl, and therefore he should not be punished as much in case he had raped a white girl. He said sorry, I said it wrong. No, it was an Asian man raped an Asian girl and said therefore he should be punished more than usual because Asian girls suffer more, implying the judge believed that white girls are just easy meat who don't suffer as much. Even though, of course, it's the same physical and psychological trauma, but the judge believed white girls don't suffer as much. But if you rape a brown girl, you should go to jail more because brown girls suffer more than white girls. That's racism, and I don't get that. That's real racism. How come that judge is still a judge? How come he isn't in courts? How come he wasn't sent to jail? Right? That's bizarre, man. Incredible. You're speechless yet. You love. I didn't see Trump's speech. I'm gonna probably watch it tomorrow, so I can absorb the whole aftermath of the media as well and see what they all said about it. Right. The UK is very woken PC correctness crap. Yeah. Will Trump change things over here in Europe? I don't think so. I think Trump will go along with the NATO war on Russia. He's not really going to stop that. NATO is certainly going to go along with it. And I think it's in the US interest to go along with it. But we'll see. Look, I wish Trump were the leader who would say now, okay, I'm in charge now. We're not going to do the war with Russia. We're going to restore the trade and the diplomacy with Russia. We're going to end the war and actually really end it. And then basically force European leaders to accept that they can't be so insanely bent on war, because I think the European leaders are really crazy about war. They all want war. Maybe again, it's it's to compensate for something that they're lacking. Huh? They're lacking sort of masculine strength, right? Because Europe right now, the whole continent is, politically weak, right? We can't really exert that much influence around the world. And so maybe because we lost the colonial power, now we don't know what to do anymore, right? And then there's people like me trying to figure out, okay, but then what are we going to do, right? So I keep talking about, well, the revival of the West, making ourselves confident and strong again, hardening the soul, right? Hardening the soul to win the battles that may not be lost. I personally do not want there to be a war between Europe and Russia. I wish we could have diplomacy and trade with the Russians. I see much more that the war is going to be ethno-religious in Europe, that there's going to be a war between the white Christian types and the brown Muslim types. I think that is where the future war is going to happen. I think that's going to be the thing we need to prepare for. I think it's going to be inevitable. If you look at how our inner cities and so on, and our schools, that Muslim kids in schools are becoming the majority and so on, we're not going to survive that without a war. I think that's inevitable. I think all wars are about ethnic religious conflicts, because ethnicity, so race and religion, ethnicity and religion combined, that is the strongest power that people can feel collectively. And this is the reason why our globalist governments fear that so much. They fear religious strife. They fear ethnic conflict, because those are the strongest forces that the people have to offer. But you can only suppress that for a while, for years, decades, but not forever. And so eventually, when people in Europe wake up one morning and realize they've lost their country, they've lost their values to Islamic values, they've lost their people, there's going to be some kind of a survival instinct that kicks in and says, you have to fight. It could be in the form of a frenzy, a sort of collective panic, right? And I don't think governments will be able to stop that. I think something is going to happen, because you can't just replace one people with mass immigration and expect them to just sit and wait for the end. There's going to be a struggle somehow, and we need to mentally prepare for the possibility. I'm not causing this to happen. I'm not inciting it to happen. I'm saying I think it will happen. And what are you going to do when it does? So we can talk about what we're going to do. Right. Oh, you watched Trump's speech and it was drawn out and boring, okay? All right. All right. But sadly, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I think he will continue the NATO wars. Yeah, Trump will. Trump is a vain imperialist. Yeah, perhaps he is. Every Russian you met were pleasant people. Yeah, I suppose. I have not met many Russians in my life. Maybe just one or two. One was a attractive woman, and the other was some guy I met somewhere in Budapest. So yeah, the Russians I've met were just nice, but I haven't met that many, so I don't really know. It's kicked in for you, huh? Language. Yeah. Europe needs some cleanup. Yeah, we need to return to our roots, embrace who we are, and feel no shame in it. And certainly don't accept anybody bad-mouthing our history or our ancestors. We should be able to stand up, look ourselves in the mirror, and simply be proud of who our ancestors were, what their choices and decisions were, and explain those choices with the proper reasoning to show that they had good reasons to do certain things, rather than to say they were all bad people because they were white or something. Right? We should not go along with the disdain for white history that seems to be so commonplace around the world. All right, like in Europe, we teach our kids about the great achievements of Islam, but in Islamic schools in Saudi Arabia, I doubt they will speak even one good word of us. We're all criminals. We should all just, like, they're setting their people up for hating us, is my impression, right? So we shouldn't have to accept this, right? Right, we should never have to explain ourselves for what we are unless we have done something truly wrong. Yeah, of course, but this is so typical of Western culture. We do admit the things that we did wrong, and then we have lengthy debates, and we write the history books, and it's even taught in the schools. But other people don't do that, right? The Japanese, they barely talk about the fact that during World War II, they actually genocided a couple of million Chinese people. They don't even talk about it, right? Right? But we do. We in the West, when we acknowledge certain historic events, we say, yeah, we did that and we were wrong and we're terribly sorry. We regret it. We're going to make repayments, right? You don't hear anybody else in the world talk like that. It's almost as if we are naive. The Western people are naive. We are so naive to think that people will like us more if we downplay ourselves more. No, they won't like us more. They will just perceive that as weakness. We can't allow that anymore. We're going to be strong from now on, right? Yeah. Right, right. Yeah, we should invest in Norwegian oil. Right, right. And bankrupt the Arab oil states, yeah. Maybe there's a possibility there, right? Maybe there's more oil to be found in or around Greenland and so on. In the inland of Greenland. Hasn't really been explored yet, right? So who knows? I think, what's the problem with Norwegian oil? Is it because it's too expensive to extract it? Okay, maybe we can find a solution to get it out cheaper, and then we could compete, right? Things like that are, I think, the right things to do, yeah. That we look for the resources we still have access to and use them in incredibly efficient ways so that we can make ourselves way less reliant on resources we don't control, right? That seems normal, right? That's what we're supposed to do. You're right. You have noticed a real sense of palpable anti-whiteness. Yeah, me too. Yeah, and especially anti-male whiteness. Yeah, exactly. I've mentioned this many times before. Yeah, I totally agree. That's how it feels. How many white men living in Western Europe or in the USA would say that they feel that their government hates them? Certainly the media hates us. So I don't watch regular TV anymore. I can't stand it. It's just either it's so disturbingly degenerate or it's just outright hateful toward me, toward white males. I don't want to see it anymore. I don't watch it anymore, right? And then we have right, it's so odd the way they praise foreigners, like they've dehumanized us at this point. We've been dehumanized by our own media, not by foreign media, but by our own media. How the hell did that happen, right? We have to reverse course here, and we have to do it even if the people in charge of the media don't like the reverse course. We're going to have to make them reverse course because this is unacceptable. You can't keep doing this. I would not be surprised if in the future we manage to get some of these people in the media in front of a judge and they will be convicted for, say, defamation of white people, for example, or actual racism against white people by repeatedly projecting messages as though we're no good, we are of the bad seed or something, and that they would actually end up in jail. I would think that is an outcome we should root for, right? Right, there's no masculine white men on TV anymore. You stopped watching it, yeah. Exactly, right, right. Yeah, I've noticed that too. Only older people are listening to the news anymore, yeah. Like, I think the average age of TV viewers is like over 50 in every Western country, because the rest of us are on YouTube and TikTok and so on. We use streaming and we use popcorn time if you need to, right? Or Pirate Bay, but we don't actually watch regular TV that much anymore. So they're not really reaching us anymore, right? We've clocked out already, right? For those of you joining, this is the great Johannes speaking. Johannes Mattis Conrad. This is my live stream. I do it quite often nowadays. You got an electric vehicle not for the environment. You got it to not need to buy any petrol. Okay, I get it. Yeah. You hope that electricity prices will stay low. I can't predict the future, but I hope that electricity will stay affordable. Because if electricity becomes expensive, that using the internet becomes like charging your phone becomes like a $5 bill. I have to charge it twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day. My little phone, right? And I wonder, like, if electricity would be so expensive that it would cost you one or more dollars or euros to charge your phone. Wow, that would be the end of the world, of the modern world at least. We'll see about it. Yeah, you watch TV from the 1990s, yeah. Old movies, yeah. I watch old movies too. Is it true that Dutch people ride bicycles for their main transportation? I don't believe that. I think car is our main transportation. But if you live near a city center and you need to go to town, yeah, you would use a bicycle. I think for trips up to 20 or 30 minutes maximum. Yeah. Uh, but I think the Netherlands has more cars than people, so we definitely use cars a lot. So it's not like you can't ride a bike from Amsterdam to Rotterdam, for example. That's like 2 or 3 hours of biking. You wouldn't do that. The worst thing I've ever done, I once rode a bike from one city to another. It took me the whole day, including breaks, of course, right? And it was extremely painful because the saddles, they hurt you after an hour. It really starts to hurt. No, that's a once in a lifetime thing. I never did that again. I only did it once. But yeah, where I live right now, I would use my bicycle to go to the city center because it's 10 minutes. To the shopping mall, 5 minutes, right? To the library, 10 minutes, right? But if I know that I need to go farther than 15 minutes, I'm thinking I'll just take the car, right? Uh, Only one charging point in your village, really, near your house. Oh, you have electric cars, all right. Then the queue is so long. Yeah, that's probably the thing I would worry about most is the charging time. If you have to wait in line or queue up somewhere, oh, you don't want to be in that position. But if you can charge it at home, maybe it is useful, right? You're over 65 years old and you don't watch TV anymore. Me too. Yeah, I quit watching TV in 2003. I had a little color TV thing. I was a student, and I just didn't like what I was watching. I decided I just didn't want to watch TV anymore. Oh, sorry, I have a hiccup. I didn't want to watch TV anymore. I just put it away, and I thought we had the internet. I started. We had our university network where you could download all sorts of movies in those days. So I started watching downloads more than mainstream media. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have a petrol car. I'm not going to buy an electric car. Number one, I can't afford to buy another car. No, no, I don't see it as a good investment at the moment. No. All right, you charge your EV at home. Well, then it's probably very useful, right? Um, all right, right. So, are you still having fun? Is everybody having fun? Yeah, I enjoy doing these live streams. I try to do them for an hour or maybe longer. Maybe I'll continue a bit longer. I'm gonna look up some news articles, maybe on Zero Hedge or something, if there's anything to see about the Trump stuff on Zero Hedge, the Trump administration. Let's get updated a little bit, right? President Trump hails the start of a golden age of America in an inaugural speech. Okay, I don't know. Is it going to be the golden age? Golden age for the rich billionaires as they rip off the people, maybe. I don't know for sure if the U.S. can really. No. I find yeah, I find it hard to judge Trump nowadays because when Elon Musk and Donald Trump seem to support the H-1B visa program to bring in perhaps millions of Indians to the USA, I felt that was treason. I felt truly betrayed. Like you can't be doing this. You can't. You can't first undermine the lower class with Mexican immigrants, and now you're going to undermine the middle class with middle class immigrants from India or so. You're doing this just for the cost because it's cheaper, right? And that's treason. This is why I support nationalism, where we support our own people, and so that our own strengths will be born of ourselves. And it's costly. It costs money to invest in your own people. And that's the reason why globalists don't want to do that. They want to look for the lower cost solution. And if that means they have to like abandon their own people and betray their own people, they'll just do that. I find that really extreme. I could never support globalism. I can support a world with many national states, all just supporting their own people, and there will be conflicts, right? But not this level of betrayal. So that's how I think about it. Yeah. TikTok has changed, really. Okay. I felt the algorithm has changed a little bit. We'll have to keep tracking it to see what it's really doing. Europe is going down, maybe, but every dwindling end has a vigorous new beginning. And I truly believe that. We are going to witness the revival of the West. I also wrote a book, by the way, called Revival of the West, Securing a Future for European Peoples. It's on Amazon and so on, so you can have a look. The thing with capitalism is, it doesn't bother me that somebody can make money and they buy a yacht. What bothers me is that the person who bought the yacht also buys the politicians. And that should be impossible. I want to separate the economy from the state in a way so that rich people can be rich, they can do whatever they want financially, but there should be a safeguard mechanism to protect the political system from money influence. I don't want people to be able to buy policy in Congress or in the parliament. That should be out of reach of money. Money should not be able to buy policy, and it does currently. And that's, I think, part of the real trouble in the West, because the people are not aware of what the lobbyists are doing. The people don't understand it, right? Europe is conned by controlled right-wing opposition. Yeah, I do believe that. We have a lot of controlled opposition there. Will the FPO save Austria? Well, what do you think? I remember Jyrki Haider, who was possibly assassinated. I read a book about Jyrki Haider's death. Jyrki Haider was like an Austrian far-right politician, and he presumably crashed his car on the way home and tumbled and then died. But I read a whole book about this. The book was by the author Gerhard Wisniewski. And he studied the car. It turns out the car Jyrki Haider died in was still in a garage somewhere, and the author of that book was able to inspect the car, and he found things about it that might change the narrative that perhaps Jyrki Haider didn't die in an accident but was assassinated, right, by the Austrian Secret Services. So there's a possibility here that the Austrian Secret Services killed a far-right leader because he was going to win the election. And the same thing happened in the Netherlands, of course. We had our flamboyant gay right-wing man, Pim Fortuyn. He was also assassinated, and everybody thinks, or I think most people agree that, yeah, Secret Services were behind that too. So that is odd that in Europe, even when the people support a far-right leader, that leader is basically on the hit list to get killed. The European climate is very strange in the sense that the people want far more right-wing policy than the media and the powers that be will ever allow, and they are willing to assassinate the populist leaders who are elected by the people, right? That's really extreme, right? Yeah, let's make the West rise. Yeah, I keep telling you, every dwindling end has a vigorous new beginning. And we represent this new beginning. But we can do a lot of things the way we please, you know. The future is not constrained by whatever happened in the past, right? Right, money should not define the person, yeah. That's true. If the South ditches the dollar, then it'll be worse, right? Who knows, yeah. It's a war against Europe, right? No, they use a patsy. Like in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, you had a patsy who fell, right? He was JFK was assassinated by the CIA, but they use a patsy and they convict the patsy, right? Same in the Netherlands. It's just how the secret services work, because the people will want to see someone convicted, so they'll use that, right? And there was a documentary on mainstream Dutch television claiming that the Secret Service was behind it. So Belgium, ask me what I think of Flanders. Flanders could maybe join the Netherlands, right? But Belgium is a failed state, right? It was broadcast by BNN in 2003 or so. It's probably on YouTube still. You can look it up. BNN documentary about Pim Fortuyn, yeah, about his death. Homeland Party, all right. Belgium is not a real country. Yeah, yeah, maybe Flanders and the Netherlands can rejoin the Holy Roman Empire. Right, we could work with the Germanic peoples of Europe and the Celtic peoples and so on, our Slavic friends in the East. What I've noticed about. I do agree. There's a specific Slavic face where you can see, oh, they're Slavic. Their faces are a bit different, right? But then again, at the same time, like Poland, like say northern Poland, Belarusia, northwestern Russia, you have people who don't have that Slavic face. They look very Nordic, really. They look Nordic like Scandinavians, um, and that's interesting that we have so many people who share similar appearances, right? It's sad in a way. I find it sad then that if we have so many people around in the Nordic territories, basically, uh, whether they're Slavic, Germanic, or Celtic or whatever, that we are pretty much of the same genetic stock in the end, and it's sad that we are so divided now. We should understand that we're actually in this together. We all have the same mass immigration problems. We all have the same Islam problem. We all have the same violence and the same leftist governments cracking down on us, right? Or the same diversity nonsense. And if we would perhaps find a way to ally, to form alliances together, we could make a stand. We could stand up for ourselves and our rights to live and exist as who we are. Well, I'm thinking of what I should do. Should I join politics? Then I would have to start my own new party. I can't join an existing one because I would never end up agreeing with anybody. But the thing is, right now, I notice in the Netherlands, mm, Dutch people just deeply dislike me. So that's why I speak more in English, because the English speaking crowd is more susceptible to what I'm talking about. I think Dutch people are like intellectually not on the right level yet. So I can say that because I'm Dutch. I'm talking about my own people. I don't know what would be necessary in the Netherlands. Something really has to go wrong before people will finally change their mind. Right now they're just too slavish. They're just following along with bad examples and so on. What would be the main points of my political party? It would be about causing the revival of the West. I would focus on teaching kids true competencies. For example, how can kids come off of school, they graduate from primary school, and they don't know how to churn milk into butter or yogurt. They don't know how to do these things. They don't know anything about the real world. Because if we would teach children the right skills that make them truly independent and confident, emotionally confident, they might not need the government so much, see? If you teach kids more skills, like how to spin sheep wool into thread and then knit your own sweaters or something, maybe that's not what boys want to do, but you could teach girls something like it. These skills have been lost. So I would hammer down, I would really make it very important to teach kids and people, also the grown ones, the adults, teach them the skills we need to become more independent from, say, global trade or so, right? Because a talented, skilled people can stand on its own. It can survive on its own, right? I would, of course, really close the borders. Enough is enough, right? It's just done. We're not going to do this anymore. I would get young women easy access to housing, because lack of housing is a contraceptive. One of the reasons why European women are not having more children is because they can't get the housing. And if a woman can't get a house, she will postpone children and maybe never have them, right? So we need to get young women from, say, around age 20 or so, make sure they can get a house, an affordable house, right? And so we will have to arrange some things. Maybe the boomer class needs to make room for the young women so the young women can have housing. Maybe the boomers can live in small apartments in the cities now, right? We make the cities old town for old people and let the young people roam the countryside and have more kids, right? So we need to shuffle things around a bit, and I would do that by force if necessary. I would just make it happen, because we need to achieve certain goals, to set ourselves up for a better future, right? So those are the kinds of things that I would be doing. Yeah, China does teach them that, right? So they become a more skillful people. We deserve to be that too. Right. In Korea, they learn how to fly drones. Yeah, they need drone soldiers to kill us, right? Women have to nest to reproduce. Yeah, they need a house. Yeah. This is one of my strongest points. Yeah. And then maybe we need to kindle some national spirit so people care a little bit more about each other than they do now. It's too overly individualistic. Now, I'm not for collectivism and communism, but a little bit more of a sense of we're in this together is absolutely necessary to get the society working again. Who cares about boomers? They have 5 more years to live and they'll be dead. So they've had the life already. It's totally unfair to deny younger people the right to even start a life at all. We have to do something about the housing. It is the most important problem. It's the reason why the West is failing right now, right? Yeah. I think we will need communes. No, I'm not into the hippie commune stuff now, but I think a sort of sense of tribalism should be normal, where people feel like, hey, this is our neighborhood, and we know each other and we fight for each other, right? Something like it. Yeah. Should I go more into housing and fertility? Well, I was saying that lack of housing is a contraceptive for young women. It's the reason why they don't have kids. They need a house. And so if the housing is too expensive, how do you solve the problem? Well, one problem is we have a boomer class, old people, occupying family homes, but they no longer have any kids at home, right? So the boomers may need to trade. So make room, right? We need to make room. Um, I think once women get access to housing, their dreams of motherhood will easily return. I've got a house now. You can settle down and have a nest. I mean, it's not too much to say about it. I think it just needs to be done, and I would not be afraid of doing this. I would just make it happen. I'll take all the, all the insults, throw them at me. I'll just do it anyway, right? Right. I also think, you know, why did they say, I think a lot of things are explained in reverse, right? They say young women want to have careers and therefore they're not having children, but that's not true. Women are having careers because their boyfriend can't buy them a house. Their husband can't afford them a house. So they have to also work to pay rent or pay the mortgage. And then they're stuck. Then you've got two people working a job, right? And then they barely see their own house because they're not there during the day. They only sleep and eat in their house, and then there's nothing else to do, right? And then if they have kids, oh, then the kids have to go to daycare and kindergarten. You're separating parents from their children at way too early ages. In Germany and in the Netherlands, babies as old as 6 months are dropped off at the daycare. That's insane. You know, you're ripping. You're never even developing a bond with your own child. There will never be a bond anymore. And I think part of that is government policy nowadays. These far left weirdos, they want childhood to be completely separated, right? They want the state to raise the children, and so the whole concept of birthing children and raising them and having a bond with them is erased. And that means what are you really doing? You are erasing motherhood. Why is that feminism? I thought feminism meant we give women housing so they can be mothers. No, feminism doesn't want feminism wants to erase motherhood. It's just bizarre. Right? It's your parents, all right. Yeah, you used to take one man to provide for a family. Now it takes everyone. Yeah, right. Right. But even the modern houses that they're building in the Netherlands, they are designed for, there's actual houses now in the Netherlands. If you want to rent them, it says you can't have kids there. No kids allowed. So this was for, what's that about? That's for sterile couples. And then you have housing they only have one or two extra bedrooms, so you can't have a large family in them. When in the past, I think in the 1950s, when you built a house in the Netherlands, it would have at least 3 bedrooms or even 4 or so. You could have kids there, right? Nowadays, the average number of bedrooms the houses are designed for just 2 kids maximum, right? If you want to have a third kid, they will have to sleep somewhere in the attic or so, right? So houses are too small, and it's all designed to reduce fertility of the people, right? Housing is the key. That's all I can say. Housing is the key. Right. They don't even see their own house or get to live in it, right? Like you've got this massive cost, your mortgage and so on, and you never really get to use your own house or enjoy it that much, no. Because you're always working, right? That's just crazy, right? Yeah. Someone says women can make their own choices, but clearly they can't. If women want to choose to be mothers, have a large family, they can never afford the housing for it, so they can't make that choice. That choice needs to be available. And I'm telling you, if that choice were available for young women in their early 20s to start big families, a ton of them would. Over half of them would do that because that's what they naturally want. But the choice is not available to them. And then you can't say that women make their own choices. I mean, if you are forced to choose the second option instead of the first option, you're not getting your first choice, so you'll settle for the second choice. That's not the same thing as making your own decisions, is it? You're being forced to accept your second choice instead of your first, and it's just not fair, right? Yeah, my name's Johannes. Yeah. When they changed the money here in the UK, that's when everything changed and things got more. Yeah. All right. I think if we would start some kind of movement if it would be like a one party issue, it would be housing. Get women housing. That's the solution to a lot of the problems in the Western world. It just needs to be done. Mm, yeah. Yeah, I've been around for a while. Yeah, I've been on TikTok for 3 years, maybe. I used to have other accounts. I used to get banned a lot, and then I came back again. Yeah. But now it's time to take my speaking into the outside world. I think, yeah, whether or not I should enter politics or do it differently and start more like a popular movement, and then have a political party attached to it as well. But I think first it would be it would be important to have the movement there, so that I know there, okay, there is this human energy available just to go and do things, and then we can enter politics, right? So I'm just figuring out what I should do. What's the next step? Where do I start? Right. That's it. Yeah. All right. So I've been speaking to you for more than an hour and 15 minutes or so. So I'm gonna end the live stream. Right. I know I know some people just joined, but um, you will probably be able to see the replay of this live stream on my YouTube channel at the Great Johannes, if you feel interested in it, and my newsletter at jmk.info. You can also subscribe there. It's free. It's free. The newsletter is for free. Although if you choose to donate, that's also great, right? All right. Thank you all for watching, and I should be back soon, and we can talk more about what to do about the problems governing the Western world, right? All right. All right. Thank you very much. And bye.